Because you're here.
Why are you doing this to us? Oh, what a perfect question, guys. Because I have to ask the filmmakers the same thing, or at least the writers, okay? Because this is the best scene in the movie. And I'm going to tell you why. I believe the filmmakers hopefully may have known what a giant pile of poo they had on their hands. So perhaps they decided to tease the audience by writing this line. It's like we ourselves were asking the filmmakers why they were torturing us with such a poorly written, meaningless story, and they directly responded to us with,
because you're here.
It's almost like they're telling us that we should have known better than to venture out to see the prequel of a long dead or barely breathing lower budget horror franchise. But honestly, I think I'm giving too much credit to the writers here because that type of meta commentary is likely far above their pay grade and more likely their IQ level. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the film in question. You guessed it, The Strangers, Chapter None. Yeah, I know it's Chapter 1, but basically nothing of any significance matters or happens in this story, so Chapter None, it shall be dubbed. The Strangers, Chapter 1 is a horror film from the surprise hit franchise, The Strangers, released in 2008. This movie was the origin of the franchise and brought in $82 million on a reported $9 million budget. Now, that's a nice chunk of profit for a low-budget horror film, so it's only natural or supernatural, hate me for that one, that we got two more movies following suit. The Strangers, Prey at Night came after 10 years later in 2018, and it only made $32 million with a budget of $5 million. So the numbers are essentially cut in half there. We can see a trend. Well, it's only been two movies, but we know what's coming. Still, profit is profit, but these films are on an obvious decline in popularity when you look at the numbers. It's just facts. The latest film to hit theaters from this franchise is now a prequel in the form of Strangers Chapter None, and so far it's grossed $13 million worldwide, heading into its second or maybe third weekend. I think it's second weekend. Either way, this film is likely going to bring in another 7 to 8 million, maybe ending up around the $30 million mark at the end of its run. So it's probably going to sit closer to the second movie in the franchise, which is not what they hoped for, but sadly, it's going to make enough profit to make another dog shit film after this. I'm assuming Chapter 2, which I'll have to find a way to come up with a clever title for that one if it sucks as well. Hoping it doesn't, but if it's based on this film, oh, it's probably doomed already. And I'm going to tell you exactly why in today's video right now. Full spoilers, we're breaking down Strangers Chapter None, Chapter 1, whatever. Okay, being a prequel, you would expect this film to provide a world-building narrative that would fill out the characters and ideas featured in previous films. I mean, even a poorly received version of this concept can be found in a film like The Phantom Menace. We all know this movie. Sure, it's not exactly a great film, but at least you come out of a film like that with a greater understanding and even appreciation for the characters, the lore, the ideas, and the greater world of the story that this particular film or prequel is serving to build upon or to build up. And this is precisely one of the main issues I take with The Strangers Chapter None. Well, that, and it's just a terribly boring, by the books, somewhat predictable disaster class of storytelling. So let's dive into the film itself and break down this week's disaster piece. Actually, I don't know if this film is worthy of that title. I gave Phantom Menace that title because there was a lot of redeeming qualities while also being horseshit. This one doesn't have anything redeeming, unless you take it on a meta narrative, and even then, there's only a couple moments, but I digress. The film opens with a scene that's a precursor of what to expect for the rest of the story. It sets the theme, it sets the tone of the story. We see a man running away in the forest. He's in a suit, and he's sprinting away from something scary. Like in almost every chase scene in most movies, he trips over a tree and I think he nearly breaks his back, but he ends up maybe breaking his leg instead. Anyways, he's now crawling away, and a man with an axe starts to come closely towards him with another strange man by his side, both wearing masks, and the dude gets slaughtered. Boom, that was the intro. Now we get a text crawl on the screen, or a title roll on the screen, and it says this: there are 1.4 million violent crimes estimated by the FBI every year. Every 25 seconds, one occurs, even while watching this film. Spooky. And this film shows one of the most gruesome ones. So they're basically saying, oh, crime happens a lot, and this film shows a crime. Cool. Okay, we now cut to a scene where a couple is driving in a car. They're going to Portland. They're on day 3. They're on the third day of their 3-day road trip to Portland. We got a boyfriend and a girlfriend in the car driving through a forest. They only have about 300 more miles to go, but they got to stop for food, and it's getting close to nighttime, so they might want to rest up. We get our first fake out jump scare as they start kissing in the car while they're on the middle of a skinny road in the forest. They veer off to the side, and we get a jump scare when they almost crash. Nothing too exciting. I'm just recapping the events of the story. As you can see, they're very enthralling. Now, the dude starts having a panic attack or something, or an asthma attack of sorts, so he brings out his inhaler. This is going to be we're going to call this Chekhov's inhaler, okay? They also check their Ally app. It's like a financial thing, and it shows that their $4,000 came through. So they're not exactly rich, you know? They then head into Venus, a town with a population of 468, and it's supposed to be a cool little town. They want to check it out and maybe stay here for the night. The dude says, "I'm starving. I could eat a whole fucking cow." So they pull up to a diner, like a drive-in diner kind of thing, little biker stop, if you will. And immediately the vibe is kind of creepy and just off. Something's off in the restaurant. Everybody immediately stares at them as they walk in, and even the cops are kind of eyeballing them. It's as if everyone in this town is in on the story or out to get them. That's what the filmmakers want us to think, at least, which should be important to the story, right? That should be some ominous foreshadowing, in my opinion. Now, the couple, they're both not bad actors, but they do have this terribly forced on-screen chemistry that just it serves just enough purpose to get you through the film. It doesn't make you like overtly cringe, but it's clearly just by the books Hollywood couple on screen. Nothing that really gets you going. I think the girl actor in this is actually far superior of an actor to the guy. The guy kind of comes off as a little stale, a little wooden, but I mean, it's a $9 million budget. They're not landing Tom Cruise for this film, right? So I give him a pass. As long as the story's good, I'll give him a pass. You either got to have like insanely entertaining actors and characters, or you have to have an insanely good story. If you have both, you got a huge hit on your hands. But just to be passable, you got to have one or the other, right? I don't think this film has either. Spoiler alert. Now they're talking about getting married while they're waiting for their food. They've been together for 5 years, and the dude has yet to propose. And the girl asks him why, and they get overheard by another couple, I think. And then the other couple asks what he's waiting for. You know, wait, what are you waiting for, dude? Why don't you marry your girlfriend of 5 years? And he actually says the only line in the entire theater that got a purposefully crafted laugh out of my theater. He says, "At this point, I'm just waiting for my turkey milk, ma'am." And you know what? Despite the actor not being that great, that line actually got my theater giggling, and me. I was like, "Oh, we're off to a good start. We might have a great character here. We might have something on our hands." Oh no, I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. The waiters also mentioned that there was another customer, an older gentleman who came through earlier and ordered a turkey milk just like the dude here, and he mysteriously disappeared shortly after. So there's some more on the nose foreshadowing, just really hitting us over the head with it. Hey, if you order the turkey milk, you're gonna die. And that also should come into play with the story somehow in the future, right? We should be wrapping these early foreshadowing elements up by the end of the movie, I hope. So they finish their dinner, nothing more eventful happens in the diner. And then they head to their car, and what do you know? The car is not working. What a coincidence, or is it? Then we get a random jump scare as a seemingly random dude knocks on the door while they're trying to start the car. And he says he has a conveniently located car garage right across the street. He's a mechanic and he can fix this shit overnight. Now, it is kind of questionable that they need an engine repair on a seemingly newish in-shape car. So there's obviously got to be some town-wide conspiracy going on, from the people in the diner staring at them, talking about the guy who disappeared who ordered a turkey milk. And now there's this mysterious mechanic who has maybe rigged their car to be needing fixing to trap them there, okay? There might be a whole town-wide conspiracy going on here, okay? Keep that in mind. That might be important. It's not going to be important. In fact, it's not going to matter at all. So now they gave up their car to the mechanic, they put it at the garage, and they go to stay at a little bed and breakfast style lodge, a little cabin further down in the woods, a mile or two away from the diner. Think of an old style Airbnb, you know, cabin in the woods. Classic setting for a horror film. Easy, low budget vibe. In fact, there's a horror film satire that made fun of all the tropes of modern horror called Cabin in the Woods. So it's pretty funny that this story takes place in a cabin in the woods. Very telling. Also, before they head to the house, real quick, they encounter these two like Mormon looking children, you know, with the nice dress suits on. They're on bikes.
Hi.
You know, when a Mormon outreach comes to your house, it's usually two younger gentlemen on a mission, you know, to tell you about the Lord of the word of the Lord. These two little kids give them the book of the Lord, and they ask if they are sinners. Awesome. They're starting to create some elements of theme and bring in the idea of punishing people for their sins. That is a classic horror trope, right? We see that in like movies like the Saw franchise. So this should matter to the rest of the story, right? Spoiler alert. It doesn't. Now, the main character dude says, "Aren't we all sinners?" And then we move on to the cabin, okay? And here's where our story truly starts to kick into gear, I think. When they arrive, the girlfriend says, oh, this is much better than our hotel. And I'm like, yeah, you bet your ass it would be. It's a whole entire cabin. You got a refrigerator, you got a family room, you got couches, you got a piano. Yeah, you're trapped in the woods with no help. So yeah, maybe it's a lot better than a hotel, or maybe it's not. Maybe you should have been at a hotel. But they couldn't get to the hotel because of the car. So gotta be stuck in a shitty horror movie instead. Apparently the fridge is not working. And there's a number to call posted on the fridge for repairs. This fridge thing relates to what is the best moment in the film. This film has one redeeming moment, and it's brought on by the refrigerator. So stay tuned for that. Now, what's odd is they're only supposed to be there for one night. You know, the car is going to be fixed by the next morning. And so I'm not sure why they would want to wake up the owner of the cabin for a refrigerator repair if they're leaving in the morning. I would think that any sensible person would understand that they're not going to ruin somebody's sleep schedule to fix a refrigerator that they're not even going to need to use. They are only storing a 6-pack of beer in this fridge, okay? And that 6-pack of beer is going to be drank by them in the next hour. So why are they waking up their landlord of sorts, their cabin owner at midnight to fix a fridge? You're in a town of 500 people, right? You think there's going to be a refrigerator repairman who is going to wake up at 1 a.m. and come fix your shit? Okay, come on. I said this relates to a better part of the film, but the logic behind them actually calling somebody for this is ridiculous. I mean, it could have been anything more important. It could have been none of the locks work on the cabin, or none of the water runs, or there's a leak above our bedroom where we want to sleep. I don't know, something like that. A pipe burst, or I don't know, something more logically conducive to needing to make an emergency call at midnight. And these are nitpicks, guys. I know these are nitpicks, but when you start to look at the details of a film and the small details don't make sense, it is eerily foreboding for the rest of the film, for the bigger details in the film. A really detail-oriented filmmaker, somebody who uses logic to direct their story in every sense, is going to come out with a better film. Usually, those are better filmmakers. Those are more well thought out, more intellectual filmmakers who don't make these kind of mistakes in their script because they have better ideas and they have more care and more talent when it comes to writing stories, writing cohesive, logically sound stories that we can buy into and be affected by emotionally. So that's why some of these nitpicks are actually important to look at when you're trying to analyze the overall quality or understand how or why this film was made the way it was. That's all. And it's also just kind of funny to me and entertaining to point these out on videos. So that's that. And cry about it if you want. So after they call the repairman, they're having a cheesy little conversation out on the deck, drinking their beers. And the girl says, oh, do you hear that, love? And he goes, what? And she goes, silence. And oh my God, our whole theater starts laughing because in a better film, this might play out kind of, still cheesy, but sentimentally, efficient enough. In this movie, it's like, yeah, do you hear that? Who's clapping for your film? Nobody. Silence. Even from the audience at the end of the movie, silence. Actually, it was more like, what the fuck was that? But yeah, anyways, silence. Do you hear that? Man, the writing in this film does not hit. The acting makes it seem even worse. Oh. So the cheesy conversation ensues, and what do you know? They're now making out. Wouldn't be a horror film without a boyfriend and girlfriend making out in pure bliss before the shit hits the fan. The couple are lounging in the cabin now as they hear a mysterious knock on the door. They open it and it's a strange, mysterious girl clouded in darkness. We can't, I don't know, it's so dark on the porch. They didn't want to turn the light on. We couldn't see shit. But it's a strange girl. It's one of the strangers. And the stranger girl asks for Tamra, a mysterious person who isn't there or used to live there or somebody. So they ask for Tamra and then they mysteriously disappear. Incredible. Just incredible. So now we cut to the couple listening to a record because, of course, it's the Strangers. It wouldn't be the Strangers without a record playing in the background with an old-timey soundtrack. So they're laying on the couch listening to this record and talking about getting married. They come to the conclusion that the reason why they haven't been married yet is because early on in the relationship, the girl said she didn't want to, and the boy said, well, I took that as you never wanted to be really married, so I never asked you. So apparently it's the girl's fault that they're not married because she told him directly that she never wanted to get married, and it was just a big misunderstanding. So now they're coming to a catharsis together that maybe they should get married because they secretly both want to. I don't know, just pointless love story stuff just to fill the time in the movie. I mean, they are moving in together to Portland, so they're clearly already a pretty sound couple. 5 years dating and moving in together in Portland. They're pretty much already married. It's just, to me, it's just one of those cheesy romance scenes to give us more empathy and connection with the main characters. It's clearly trying to serve that purpose, but the movie's not good enough to get the job done. It isn't. It just falls flat. Now, it's at this point that the boy starts having like an asthma attack attack, like another panic attack. So he goes to get his inhaler, but it's actually stuck in the car. They left it in the car at the mechanic in the garage next to the diner they were at earlier. So that's a problem, right? Now, the boyfriend has a solution. Funny enough, there's actually a fully functioning motorcycle made easily accessible at the cabin itself. So the owner of this cabin just, leaves the motorcycle laying around with the keys in there. That's what I would do if I had a bed and breakfast. I would just leave my really expensive, possibly sentimentally valued motorcycle in the garage with the keys in it. So anybody can just, go ahead and mess around on it. Just yet another stupid plot detail that I don't even need to explain why this is dumb. If you have a motorcycle, if you've owned a motorcycle, I doubt you would leave it with the keys in it at an Airbnb at a bed and breakfast. I just doubt it. All right. Motorcycle owners, tell me in the comments, would you do that? I have one in the garage. I keep the keys with me at all times. If I'm going out, I'm not leaving the keys at home. If people are staying at my place, I'm not leaving the keys in sight. It's just not. You're not riding my bike. Okay. You're just not. Anyways, the boyfriend takes the motorcycle out to go back to the diner, back to the garage where the mechanic is working on his car. Now it's likely already, maybe 10 p.m., 11 p.m., maybe midnight. So the boyfriend left. He's on the motorcycle going to get his inhaler, and we cut back to the girlfriend alone at the cabin. She's hanging out by herself, probably having a few beers, smoking, whatever. And what do you know? A stranger knocks on the door. So she goes to the door, she double locks it, she deadbolts it, but they keep asking for Tamra. There's a strange voice outside asking for Tamra. And if you're wondering if Tamra is going to pay off in any way, it doesn't, okay? It doesn't pay off. We don't ever find out what the fuck Tamra is or why Tamra is. I'll do you one better. At this point, I started to lose my mind because I was sitting next to this row of Arab gentlemen who came in and they were yelling at the screen saying, Tamra, they have you. And I was like, what? And I overheard their conversation. Apparently Tamra was one of their friends. And so they got a giant kick out of the fact that Tamra was being called out in the movie. And honestly, listening to this group of Arab gentlemen next to me make jokes at the movie about their friend Tamra was the most enjoyable part of the movie. In any other movie, I would have, maybe walked out or looked at these guys and said like, hey, shut the fuck up. To be honest, it was so charming. And they were speaking my inner thoughts as they were roasting this movie, kind of like throwing popcorn at the screen almost, just being rambunctious. It was actually quite entertaining. So I had more fun watching the crowd in this movie than I did watching the movie. Anyways, I digress. Back to the main story or the plot of this movie, if there even is one. We know they're infiltrating the house now and she's being surrounded. So we know some shit is going to go down very soon. We're getting in the mood to be scared. It's kind of doing its job. I'll give it a C- on the horror element of this film. I'll give it a C+ on the horror element of this film at best. So she's now frantically hoping for Ryan to come back. That is the main character of that is the name of the main character, by the way. I forgot to tell you. The boyfriend is named Ryan, but we're just going to call him boyfriend. Okay, boyfriend and girlfriend. They don't deserve character names. They're not really that much of characters anyways. I mean, the boyfriend's kind of a funny dude. The girlfriend's just a straight up, regular ass bimbo girlfriend. She doesn't have very much characterization. So she starts looking for her phone. She finds it on a counter behind her. And then I don't know what happened here. I'm not sure if my memory was hazy at this point or if the film was playing proper tricks on me or if it was just a dog shit sequence in the movie. But she looks out the window. As she grabs her phone, she starts hearing somebody singing Rockabye Baby. Rockabye Baby in the treetop. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you know that one? She hears that. It wouldn't be a horror film without an ominous rendition of a classic children's lullaby, right? Come on. Age-old tricks. You gotta do it. It's horror, guys. It's horror. So as she's hearing this ominous lullaby, she approaches a window and she opens it and there's nothing there. And then she looks down at the sink and there's like this weird sound effect and she gets jump scared by a sink while looking at the window. I shit you not. I do not even understand what these jump scares are at this point. It just makes you sit there and think, what the fuck was that? It doesn't scare you. It just makes you confused. The editing on it, the way it was approached, just the buildup of it, and then looking down at the sink. I don't know why we're looking at the sink. I don't know. And apparently everybody in the theater was on the same page as me because they start laughing at this point. They start laughing at the jump scare because we didn't know what the hell was going on. Like we just didn't understand it. So she calls Ryan after this and he won't answer the phone, obviously, because it's a horror film. He doesn't get to answer the phone. You can't answer a phone when somebody's in trouble in a horror movie. You just can't. So she goes to smoke a cig now. She's stressed. Obviously, if you're stressed in a movie, what do? You smoke a cigarette. And again, she turns on the record player. Because why? Because it's The Strangers and we play records in this movie because that's part of these movies. Now, finally, we cut back to Ryan on the motorcycle as he arrives at the shop. As he arrives, he gets confronted by the mechanic. I'm not sure why this dude is there at like midnight. Maybe he's working on the car because because he's such a good dude. You know, shout out to the mechanic. What a great dude. You know, he's there at like 11 p.m. working on a car. Love it. Dedicated. Best character in the film. Best character in the film. He comes up with like a big wrench to Ryan and he says, you should have called first. I would have thought you were a car thief, because Ryan is, you know, breaking back into his own car. Not really breaking in. I think he had the keys. And if he had the keys, I guess he gave a spare key to the mechanic. Makes sense. They were moving all their stuff. They're moving all their stuff to Portland. So he probably had a spare key on hand. You know, normally if you were going to a mechanic and you're staying in on vacation, you probably don't have I don't know. I've never brought my spare key on vacation. So maybe I should. Good looks, movie. Good looks. Now we cut back to the cabin, and the girl is now playing a piano, because horror film, you've got to play a piano in a horror film. You just have to. It's just one of those things. Now it can be used very effectively. It can. I love me a good piano. I love me a good horror movie with a good piano. Okay, I do. And she stops playing abruptly when she thinks she hears something. And it's at this movie where I stopped thinking as well. I turned my brain off, because we're about 35 minutes into the movie, and all that's happened is they ate at a diner, they went to a cabin, and they get spooked a little bit. That's it. There's no other depth in the story to this point. Girlfriend, boyfriend on a road trip, go eat at a cabin, car breaks down, they stay there. Spooky things. That's it. That's all that's happened. And it's not even good, fun, spooky. It's just like by the books, expected, copy and paste, chat GTP horror. That's all that's happened in 35 minutes. Moving forward. So we cut back to she's now playing the piano again. Apparently nothing happened. It was just a spook in her mind. And we get a kind of a clever shot of the back of her playing a piano. You know, we're facing the piano and there's a mirror above her, and we see one of the main strangers, you know, the masked horror characters, walk by in the background while she's playing piano. I kind of appreciate this shot. It's it's kind of overdone, but it still made me feel something. I got a little creeped out with the atmosphere of the piano and just seeing the guy barely in the mirror. It was nice. All right, nice little touch. There's just little moments here and there in this film. Little moment, cool shot, spooky shot. I would think though, however, if she was hyper aware of somebody spooking her like 10 seconds ago, she might, be a little bit more on the looks instead of just going back to being nonchalant. Because as we know, she's already been spooked, twice, 2 or 3 times now, 3 or 4 times now in this film. So I'm not sure why she's acting so casual still. It just, I don't know. It's a little bit inconsistent, but still, nice shot, cool shot, horror movie shot. Well done. Well, 7 out of 10. We cut back to the boyfriend now, and he has moved on across the street to a diner so he can get some late night grub for him and his girl. The bikers say that he should stay and hang out, but he says, he's got to get back to his girl at the cabin. And the scene ends or cuts right there. Added a lot to the story. We really needed to see him go get food. The girl is now in a creepy, obligatory horror film shower scene, while the same stranger from the mirror shot earlier sits about 2 feet away from her and stares at her for a good, 30 seconds or so. Now, this girl was supposed to be hyper aware and spooked and scared and alone. And so she goes to take a shower in this house, and you're telling me that a dude can stand 2 feet from the glass staring at her and she doesn't even notice. Like she's not even like turned around to him. I think she's like sideways to him, so he would be over here. And my God, if I'm spooked out, if I'm on high alert, even if I'm not on high alert and I'm in the shower, I'm turning, I'm moving, I'm doing a little grooving. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm moving around, and I'm gonna notice a guy with a bag on his head standing outside my shower door. It's not a really super foggy shower door. The viewers, us, the audience, can clearly see this dude. And yes, I know it's a horror movie. We gotta set up tension, but you have to do it with intelligence and believability for the audience to actually be scared instead of pointing and laughing at your movie. And in a film like this, where you've already built up 0 credit with the audience so far, we're not giving you any leeway here. Like this is it just comes off as a parody of itself at this point. This girl should open the shower door and slam this dude, or she should scream and fall and break her pelvis or something, and then he gets away. There should be more of an impact caused by the stranger villain sitting 2 feet away from our main character here after she's hyper alert already. It does not make any sense. And yes, it happens in a lot of horror films, but they have better stories, better characters, and they're more intelligently thought out in terms of the way the scenes are actually blocked and acted and motivated. And so this film just doesn't have that. And so you can't give it any credit. You can't give it any leeway. There's no slack to give this film. It's just a parody of horror at this point. However, eventually during the shower, she ends up looking over and he is gone. Like he's got superpowers. Like this guy just teleported, or he's the goddamn fucking Barry Allen Flash, moving quicker than the speed of light. I don't know. I'm not sure. That happens more than once in this movie. And there's no there's no hint at a supernatural element, so you can't really justify it like that. If they would have dropped hints that perhaps there is a supernatural element, then maybe we can get away with it. But they don't. This film is supposed to be grounded in reality. And if it's not supposed to be grounded in reality, then why do they open the film with statistics from real life? You know what I mean? And not even supernatural. It would have been more, acceptable if the statistics from the intro were based on supernatural reportings and supernatural crime happenings. But no, they were based on real life violent events. So we're supposed to be set in a real world environment here, not a supernatural environment. So I don't know why these guys can teleport. I just don't. So our main character girl is now out of the shower. She's drying her hair. And what do you know? Obligatory power outage during a horror film. Everything in this film that happens is not exactly predictable to the T, but it's like they opened up the box of horror tricks and just like started throwing them at the script. Oh, power outage. Ooh, piano. Ooh, record playing. Ooh, creepy guy in the background. And they just throw in these things and go, oh, we've got a horror movie. It's like looking up the recipe for chocolate chip cookies and then just throwing them all in a bowl and putting them in the microwave. Like you don't stir, you don't mix, you don't figure out the right ratios. You just say, oh, we need a little bit of sugar, a little bit of flour, toss some eggs in there, throw some chocolate in that shit and toss it in the microwave, and we've got cookies, right? Because I put the ingredients in. Why didn't it taste good? Well, the ingredients were all right, but you didn't mix this shit very well, and you put it in a microwave. You absolute dumbass. Gordon Ramsay would have a field day. I mean, shit. At this point, the movie Tarot, the one I previously reviewed, check the video in the description, it looks like a masterpiece compared to this film. Like, it just does. Like, I'm actually glad I watched Tarot because I thought that was a truly, truly dog shit horror film. I at least have something to compare it to now with The Strangers Chapter None, because I would take 10 Tarots over one of these films any day. Not gonna lie. So the girl now goes to investigate the power outage. She's got her phone light on and she's doing this acting as if she knows she's in a horror movie. And I don't know why. It just comes off as I'm watching the actor and not the character. It comes off as if I'm watching people make a horror movie and not watching a horror movie, if that makes any sense. It just messed with my head. It made me not buy into the movie at all. Just the way it was presented. All of this film does that to me, especially the horror scenes. So then she opens up a closet with a bunch of masks in it, perhaps foreshadowing to, the origin of the strangers, this being, chapter 1. Maybe we're going to get some flesh here in the world, some lore, some world building, some actual evidence of how these strangers, why these strangers, where these strangers came about from, why they're doing what they're doing. Perhaps we can get some juicy details in the story, but I don't know. I don't think so. It's just a closet with masks. She also sees another closet. She opens it and what do you know? She finds the circuit board. But what do you know? She drops her phone at the most opportune moment, right before she's about to hit the circuit switches, and we get a reveal of a lady stranger in a mask. Now this scares the shit out of our main character girl here as she goes to hide in the closet. The stranger is now slowly approaching the closet and the closet opens up and what do you know? It's actually just Ryan. It's actually just the boyfriend. He somehow came home and knew exactly which closet she was hiding in. We didn't see him bumbling around. We didn't see him enter the house and open every room. No, he just comes home and directly goes to the closet because the writers told him that was where the girl is. So the boyfriend actually knows the writers of the movie as well. He's got superpowers. He can see through the script. He can see through reality. He can see through the matrix of the movie and he just knows exactly which closet she's in. So he goes directly to the closet and jump scares her and we get a sigh of relief from the audience. No, we don't, because we don't give a shit. And she was being super quiet, guys. She wasn't like making noises. There wasn't like rumbling coming from the closet. There wasn't like a scuffle. In my eyes, there should have been, the stranger should have opened the closet and there should have been like a little scuffle with the stranger and Ryan scares off the stranger or something like that. That would have been more, logically effective and maybe even more exciting as well. Because I don't know, how did he know to go directly to that closet? How did he know? There should have been a scene where maybe she texts him, I'm in this closet, blah, 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 blah. If there was, maybe I missed it. Who knows? I am only human, but I don't think that exists in this film at all. You tell me in the comments if you watched it. Now, we all know bros are better at tech, so Ryan gets the power on immediately. No problems. That was a misogynist joke, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. But yes, he comes back and solves the problem right away for the girl. So the girl now tells him about the masked people, and she says that it was right behind him before he rescued her from the closet. She says it was right there. Now, this is where he starts gaslighting the girl. He points to a picture of a masked person, and, he says that maybe she was looking at the painting and maybe she got high. Maybe she smoked a little bit too much, and she was getting paranoid because she thought the pictures on the wall were scary people. Now, I don't know why he wouldn't believe this girl, as they already both experienced a creep out with weird people visiting their house. during the middle of the night earlier in the film. So I don't know why he's randomly turning into a gatekeep gaslight boy boss right here. I just don't know why. It was very out of character and just sort of arbitrarily stuck in the script to create a little conflict between the characters. That's what it felt like. So more knocking on the cabin happens, and this time they go to the door, they open it up, and it's the female stranger. It's the girl stranger. He makes the girl stranger with a mask go away. He scares her, and he says he'll call the cops if she comes back again. Makes sense. This is all fair. Standard stuff by the books. Something I would do. I would scare them away, and I would call the cops too. I'd probably call the cops by now already, but that's just me. So the boy talks to the girlfriend, and they calm down together, and then they go and eat the burgers. They go eat the food that the boyfriend bought at the diner outside of the mechanics, at the diner outside of the mechanics garage. Now this was from the trailers, so if you didn't watch the movie yourself, you might have seen this scene. And yes, it makes just as much sense as it does in the trailers as it does in the movies. Okay, so here we go. This is what I call horror for horror's sake. So they're in the kitchen, dining room area, whatever, and they're eating burgers at opposite ends of a table. And it's kind of cute, and it's a moment of peace and quiet and calm finally now, and maybe even a moment of happiness between them. And she makes a joke as the dude's eating. This dude is covered in ketchup and mustard and shit on his face, like little lettuce hanging out. This dude is eating like a 3-year-old, okay? I've never seen an adult eat like this in real life. At least an adult that's put together and has a nice girlfriend and seems to be a good guy. You know, he's not a messy slop of a guy. That's not his character. I don't think they even they should have referenced this in the diner scene in the beginning, and then it would have started to make more sense as like a theme of his character, that he's messy and clunky or whatever. But they didn't. He's just all of a sudden eating like a freaking 5-year-old, stuff in his face, and there's ketchup everywhere, dripping off of his chin like blood, and it's dripping onto the table, creating a ketchup pile on the table, and it starts to look like blood. So they start to realize that there's actually ketchup not only dripping from his face, but from the ceiling. And as they both look up, it's not ketchup they find. It's a dead fucking bird hanging on the ceiling.
Lock the front door!
Now, I don't know about you, but A, dead animals smell like shit. B, it's a giant dead bird hanging from your ceiling. How did you walk into this room, sit down at a table, open up your food, and not see a dead, bloody bird, a pretty decently sized one, hanging from your ceiling? It was just like, oh shit, dead bird. We've been in this room for how many minutes now? We've stood up, we've sit down, we've opened our food, and we've not noticed this bird. Again, if there was a supernatural element introduced into this film, it might make sense how things can just teleport. You either have to have that, or you have to have the characters be so astronomically blind, dumb, and just oblivious to their surroundings to the point where we can't even believe the movie anymore. And that's what this film is at its core. It is just an unbelievably boring and nonsensical sequence of horror elements tossed in just because they sounded cool. Very similar to when people break the fourth wall like they did in the beginning of the If movie. Link also down below to my review. They just throw in these things because, oh, audiences think this is cool, so let's do it without even thinking about how it works. Oh, I saw engines are made out of metal things, so I'm gonna strap a bunch of metal things to an engine and light it on fire, and then my car will go. That's not how engines work. You have to think about the design and how each piece serves to function the whole, you know? And these filmmakers, these writers, just simply don't. They just thought it would be a cool scene to have a dead bird dripping blood while the dude eats ketchup, while the dude has ketchup dripping from his face, because it would be ironic and scary at the same time, and clever. It's not clever unless it's actually thought out, unless each step of the way makes sense and serves a higher purpose. It doesn't. It just doesn't. So this is the stupidest thing in the film by far so far up to this point. And there's more, and there's more. This is why I almost walked out. I almost walked out after this scene. I was considering it, but the dudes next to me making fun of the movie at the same time kept me engaged enough to want to enjoy that experience along with them. Now, all of a sudden, I think we jump ahead into the film, because I swear there either has to be I either got lobotomized by the movie itself, or the writers decided to dissect like the middle portion of this script, because we now cut to a scene where the strangers are playing piano and they have a bunch of weird, creepy shit written all over the walls in blood, and the couple is now trapped in a bedroom alone. I'm not exactly sure how the logic of this sequence played out. I think the film lobotomized me. I really don't know what happened. We seemingly don't know why, how, or what happened with them getting into the bedroom. We don't know why or how or why the writing is on the wall, what it means, where it came from. It's just there all of a sudden, and we're just now in this scene with the couple trapped in a bedroom, and the strangers are outside in the main part of the house playing piano, writing bloody shit on the walls. Okay, I don't know why. We're just here now. We're just here now after that kitchen scene. Now the main masked stranger, he's got a bag mask. He starts beating in the door to the bedroom, and he appears in the scene. Everyone in the theater is actually laughing at this point. We just flat out can't understand this film. The couple is watching the door ominously, waiting for the main stranger to beat his way in, and all of a sudden it stops, and the couple waits, and the strangers are gone. So they just wanted to spook them out, and now they left. Great, I guess. Movie can continue. We have no motivations as to why the strangers left. Now at this point in the film, the boyfriend actually has the best idea I've heard all night. He says they can take the motorcycle together and get the hell out of there, which is, you know what? Great idea, boyfriend. You're actually the hero here. You're the hero we deserve. You're the hero we need. So we cut to them trying to go get the motorcycle, and then the motorcycle blows up. And the stranger appears. So they run back into the cabin after a failed attempt at getting the motorcycle, and they say, we need a weapon. And so they immediately find a weapon. Just immediately, they're like, we need a weapon. And the story is like, oh, we heard you needed a weapon. Here's a weapon. There was no foreshadowing for this earlier in the film. Nothing. They just find a weapon immediately in the cabin. I don't know how. They just do. They just knew exactly where the weapon was. So they find a gun. That's what the weapon was. They find a gun. And at this point, guys, I'm not going crazy because somebody in the theater down below audibly said, what the fuck? Like, we are just boggled how the writers of this film do not know how to set up things, pay off things, foreshadow things, create a sense of logic, create a sense of reality to the world. It's like they're just spawning in plot mechanics, like left and right, with no sense given to them, with no backstory given to them, with no evidence to support that these characters would be able to come to these conclusions, to take these actions, without the writers puppeteering them around. It's just outrageously nonsensical. And I'm not the only one in the theater thinking that at this point. Everybody else is on board with me. And apparently, if we're going to take a side note here and look at the reviews for this film, it's a 5 out of 10 IMDb. That's too high. It's a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's too high. It's a 43% on Fandango. That's fake as fuck. I'm going with the Rotten Tomatoes rating, guys. It's 16% for me, at least, or less at this point so far, and we're not even halfway there yet to the ending. Anyways, back to the story. We now cut back to the strangers, and they are playing a song on the record player because, of course, it's the strangers. We have to have record player. It is at this point that the couple ends up deciding to crawl into a vent from the kitchen, I believe. So apparently there's a crawl space vent that's just big enough for them to crawl through, and they go underneath the house into this like subspace, between the outside earth and the house. A lot of houses have these. So it's like a little crawl space underneath the main floor of the house. They hear the strangers walking above them, sort of like a knockoff Inglourious Bastards intro scene with Hans Landa, but in this case it's the strangers, and it's a far inferior film, and so you're just hoping that you're at this point you're just wishing that you were watching a better movie. But yeah, the couple is crawling underneath the floorboards. The strangers are above them. A rat crawls over the dude because, of course, gotta have a creepy crawly little animal when you're in a horror movie trying to be quiet. Just gotta have it. It's just a fact of life. Now keep in mind, these things in really well written films work, but when they're just tossed in there left and right willy-nilly in a poorly written film, you start to notice them a lot more, and you start to take more grievance with it than you would in a better movie. So normally a rat crawling over a dude while he's trying to be silent is an age-old way of driving tension in the plot. But when it's in a bad movie, you just can't help but make fun of it. So they keep crawling, and what do you know? Boom. We got a nail through the main character girl's hand. A nail through the girlfriend's hand. Absolutely great horror moment right here. I don't have any issue with this. There probably would be some rusty nails down there. It's really dark. You can't see shit, and you just wanted to move forward as quickly as you can. And what do you know? Ooh, a nail right through the hand. I like this moment. I actually do. It was still in a dog shit movie, so I could still make fun of it a little bit, but it was a nice little horror moment. Cool. I'll take as many of those as I can get at this point. This is one of the first kind of more understandable incidents in the movie that actually drove tension for me. So I didn't really have a problem with this, because now she's got to be quiet because she's got an ongoing painful injury, and she's also incapacitated with that hand likely for the rest of the story. So now we've got some more juicy conflict in a physical sense with the characters, which, you know what, good, we need more of that. Now what's really funny to me in these movies, and especially this movie, The Strangers Chapter 1, is how the actors or the characters of the strangers act when there's supposed to be nobody watching them. It's so meta. Like, it's just like the actors know that they're playing up the act in a horror movie. And so I like to believe, my headcanon is that these strangers believe they're in a horror movie, like they're demented, like they're a demented family who believes they are actually the main villains of a horror movie. And so that's my headcanon. That really is my headcanon. I wish the movie was more about that, like a delusional family. Like I wish there was lore, character building, story building to build up the characters of the strangers, because that's what I thought this movie was going to be going into it. I thought this movie was going to be a lore building, character serving story to make us understand who, why, and what the strangers are. But instead, it's just a nice big old slap to the face to the audience and a scam of a movie instead. I don't know. But yeah, the way these strangers act on the screen when they're not being watched by any other characters or cameras or anybody else in the story, they just act like they know they're in a horror movie. So I can only make up headcanon to serve to create a logic behind why they would act this way. It's just funny to me. I don't know. It takes me out of the film when they're acting all spooky. They're like moving their heads weird and they're standing ominously when the main characters can't even see them. Only the cameras can. So it's just kind of weird. That happens a lot in horror films, but again, like I said, when it happens in a bad horror film, it's much easier to poke fun of and it's much easier to take you out of the film. That's all. That's all I'm saying. But there's a much better movie hidden in this element. I would love a backstory about a delusional family who thinks they're the main villains of a horror movie in real life. That's great. That's great stuff. They needed to focus on that. They did. That doesn't exist in this film. I'm making this up for the writers. This idea does not exist in the movie at all. You think it would, being chapter 1, The Strangers. It's not. I'm writing fan fiction here. It's arguably better than the movie we got. That's all I'm saying. So the couple counts to 3 and then removes the nail from the hand, and she's free of that now. She squeals a little bit, and they keep moving. They seal up the wound with a piece of cut cloth from one of their shirts or something, and they keep going. We're nearly now an hour or so more into the movie. We're nearly now an hour or more into the movie, and I feel like barely anything has happened. They went to the diner, they got their car stuck at a mechanic shop, went to a cabin, and they're now being hunted by strangers. That's the equivalent of 1 hour of movie right there. Okay, that's all that happened in 1 hour of movie. It's quite mentally taxing to be sitting in this movie knowing that I paid for it, that I got scammed by Hollywood essentially. Jesus. So they decide to go actively hunting for the strangers now after they escape the crawl space. For some reason, the strangers disappeared again, as they always do for no reason. And now we are outside with the couple, and they have a shotgun that they grabbed earlier, and the strangers are nowhere to be found. Now, at this point, we know 2 things. We know that the strangers like to disappear and come back to the house. Okay, so they always come back to the house, right? That's important. The strangers like to disappear and come back to the house. The strangers are operating with melee weapons only. Up to this point, we see them only with melee weapons. There's not been a gun fired yet in the movie. Our protagonist, boyfriend and girlfriend, have a fucking shotgun, and they know that the strangers keep coming back. So if I was them two, my best plan of action would be to sit with our backs to a wall, an impenetrable, a wall that's hard to penetrate from the back. Sit in a room where you have an open vision of everything in front of you, okay? And have that shotgun pointed forward. And what do you do then? You call the cops, and you wait for either the strangers or the cops or both to arrive to the scene, and you have the upper hand. You've got a safe environment, a manageable environment, and a shotgun versus 3 strangers with melee tools. Who's winning that fight? And you got the cops on the way, right? That would have been a great way to try to solve the problem that the main characters are in. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily go correctly. We can appreciate that our main characters can take an action like that, and then the story can still unfold and hijinks can still ensue after that decision is made. But you need to at least have your main characters making the smartest decisions they can so that we can empathize with them when shit goes haywire. That's how really good movies work. Our main characters do everything they can, and yet they still have to have an uphill struggle and still have to solve more problems, even after they made every choice they could have. Now, you can make mistakes along the way, but they have to be understandable mistakes. Something that we would all do. But no, they do something that none of us would do. What do? They decide to go hunting in the woods at night for the strangers. They don't want to stay in the safety of their cabin where they can see things in the light. They can have cell phones at the ready, and they can have in a controlled environment to where they can, stake out till morning, until daylight or until a cop shows up. Because if a cop shows up, you can just go with them to the station and stay there for the night if you're too scared. Or you can have the cop stay on patrol for the rest of the night and help out. There's a lot more options that this script could have gone to have the main characters actually utilize brain cells. But no, they decide to go hunting for the villains in the forest in the dead of night. What do you expect? Come on. You should have known by now. This film is stupid as shit. Now, this is actually where we get the best moment of the movie. Remember earlier I was talking about the refrigerator scene when they called the repair guy, or, you know, they called the Airbnb owner, and they were going to send out a repairman for the fridge. Keep that in mind. So we're now moving forward with the main characters, and they're going to go head out to the forest to go hunt the strangers. As they do, somebody jump scares them on the porch, so they shoot the strangers. Boom. They shot one of the strangers, but no, they actually shot the repairman. The repairman who had to arrive by vehicle. He didn't just spawn in there. He just shows up while the main characters are outside, walks up to the porch, somehow jump scares them, and they shoot him in the face or in the chest or whatever. They shoot and kill the repairman on accident. These characters are so oblivious and so dumb. And the jump scare was played off in such a way that it would have been obvious that this wasn't a masked man. And you have a gun. When you have a gun, your first thing you have to think about is, am I going to be tried for murder for using this? So you have to be very careful when you have a gun. You can't just kill anybody and claim self-defense. You have to use the gun very carefully. Now, if you're spooked out, you might shoot somebody on accident for sure. But the way it was presented in this film, the fact that a loud vehicle likely had to come up to the driveway and park and open, the characters heard none of this. I don't know about you guys, but I can be inside my house with headphones on, and I can hear my neighbors, multiple neighbors, leaving their house, opening a garage, closing car doors. I can hear that shit from through my walls. So if I'm outside, I would hear a repairman pull up in his car, and I would investigate that. I wouldn't just have a repairman all of a sudden spawn in front of me on my porch and I get jump scared and shoot him. It just doesn't happen like that. There could have been a lot better ways to cause a fake out with the strangers and the repairman, but they just went for the lazy. He appears on the porch and jump scares them. They just went lazy with it, and it just made everybody in the theater again start laughing when they accidentally killed the repairman. You know, hilarious. And by the way, right away after the death scene of this repairman, we see the main characters acknowledge and see the fact that he came in a car. So he did arrive in a car. He did arrive in a noisy vehicle that should have made noise and alerted our characters that he was here, because he seemingly just got there. Like, he wasn't waiting around for a while. He had seemingly just got there. So how did they not hear him pull up? How did they not hear him pull up? It just doesn't make sense. But, you know, good news. But, you know, the good news is they do have a car now. So, I mean, they killed the guy. They're probably going to go to, you know, jail for murder, but or manslaughter at the very least. But they got a car now, so they can get away, right? Now, as they're trying to get away, you guessed it, the strangers return and shoot out their window. At this point, I don't know if their window was shot out or if it was broken by something else. It was kind of a quick flash. So the strangers maybe do have a gun. I'm not sure. But I think that it was kind of confusing here because we never see the strangers actually have a gun after this, I believe. They all use melee weapons. And so I just don't know if they only have a gun just to shoot windows or if something else broke this window. It was very unclear in the filmmaking. Now, instead of driving away at this point, their vehicle is still seemingly fully functional. We didn't get any hints that the vehicle is not functioning now just because the windshield is out. The lights are still on, the motor is still on, the engine's, you know, running, and they're still in the car after the window gets shot out. So what do? They freeze and they sit there for like 15 seconds waiting. Guys, you had zero hesitation to shoot a guy with a shotgun about 20 seconds ago. You shot him in a split second. But you're telling me you're now in your getaway vehicle and you're going to wait? You're going to hesitate and just wait. Now that you have your main escape, you're at the final frontier of getting away with your lives and potentially going to jail for manslaughter. That's a different story. But you're at the peak right here, the precipice. You're at the climax. You're about to leave. And instead of actually putting your foot on the pedal and getting out of there, you just decide to wait for the plot to continue. These characters are not being controlled by their brains. They're being controlled by their writers who have terribly malfunctioning brains. Okay. So they're being puppeteered by people who have like epilepsy or something. I don't know. Drive away. Everybody in the theater is yelling at them and just putting their hands over their face like, oh my God, this movie is so stupid. These guys won't drive away. So 15 seconds goes by of the car idling there in the driveway. And then boom, out of nowhere, the strangers ram their vehicle and smash the hood in and trap them in the car now. They're trapped in the car. It's like when they were waiting in the vehicle, it's like they knew they were in a horror movie and they're like, wait, no, we can't escape now because, well, we need the horror movie to continue because if we escape now, it wouldn't be a cool ending. So we're just going to wait around. But yeah, anyways, I digress. They get rammed. They're stuck. And so the girl decides to, the door's not functioning correctly because it got crumpled a little bit. She decides to hop out the window and run into the forest with no weapons in hand. Just she gets out and sprints away from the boyfriend, runs into the forest. At this point, the boyfriend's in the car alone with a shotgun, and we get another jump scare as one of the strangers appears in front of the broken windshield of their car. And what do you know? Boyfriend whips out the shotgun, boom, shoots the stranger, but the stranger is like Neo in the fucking Matrix. Time slows down for him, and he dodges the bullet. Now, it doesn't actually happen like that, but I imagine it had to in the stranger's head because this dude is on screen when we see the trigger pulled, and then boom, he's gone. Again, if mysterious supernatural elements were a main theme of this movie and brought up in the beginning of this movie to set the tone and the environment experiment to make sense of these plot mechanics, it might make sense like, oh, are they hunting supernatural killers right now? Are they going off against a supernatural force that they simply can't beat? An unbeatable villain? No, they're going after dudes with masks. He's shooting at a dude with a mask. This dude cannot dodge shotgun bullets. Come on, man. I don't know. This again had my whole theater laughing at the film because it just doesn't make sense. It just wanted to look cool without thinking about the consequences of the writing, okay? And the consequence is nobody gives a shit about this movie, and it's got a 16% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And that website has been known to fake reviews from time to time or boost ratings artificially, and they still couldn't get that shit going on Rotten Tomatoes. That's how bad this movie is. Oh my. Now, instead of going out the window, which seemed to work pretty well for the girl, the dude decides to like kick out the rest of the glass around the main windshield and like crawl his way out really awkwardly. And I'm like, dude, you could have just hopped out the same window your girlfriend used. It seemed to work pretty well for her. So I don't know why he does that. He just does that because it creates more tension. Again, the writers are puppeteering him to do a stupid action so that we can have more tension in the film. So he gets out of the car by kicking his way out of the main broken windshield and like crawling off the top of the hood in a really awkward way. Unnecessary, completely unnecessary. Again, the audience is yelling at him during this sequence, even laughing audibly. So now we cut to the forest, or with the girlfriend who's being chased by a female stranger with the mask on, and the girl ends up finding a little hiding spot underneath a bunch of bushes, underneath a boulder. So she's hiding in there. You know, maybe you can just hide away until the morning and go and find your dead boyfriend if he's dead. I don't know yet. So eventually the stranger comes up to her hiding spot, and they have like a 30-second stare down where I'm pretty sure the stranger definitely does know she's there because they're staring at each other for 30 seconds, and then the stranger walks away per usual. We get a stranger that scares us and walks away. The girl now all of a sudden opens up her flip phone. I was under the impression that she had a smartphone earlier in the film, so I'm not sure where the flip phone came from. Maybe it was a backup phone. Maybe it was the boyfriend's phone. I think it was the phone from the mechanic, perhaps. But I don't ever remember them showing us her picking up this phone. Maybe she got it from the car. I don't know. Maybe it's on me this time. Maybe I missed this plot detail. But she opens up a flip phone seemingly randomly for me, and she calls 911 conveniently in the middle of the conversation. She's got a perfectly clear as day conversation with this lady on 911. Everything's going smooth. She's going to get her rescue call. But mysteriously, without her moving or doing anything, the phone doesn't die. The service starts disconnecting and the call drops, and it like fuzzes out, and like it's clearly like audio editing. Like phone calls don't happen like this. Clearly movie magic making the cell phone service go out, and it was just super cheesy the way it was edited. And I'm like, all right. Filmmakers, you had two choices here. You can either create tension by dropping the phone call with the phone losing service, which makes sense if you're in a moving vehicle or if you're running away, because you could actively move to a spot with less service. Great. But we have a character who is at a standstill in a stationary hiding spot. So 99% of the time, having the phone lose service isn't going to make sense there unless some sort of atmospheric event or tragedy outside the screen happened to cause the lack of service. But you have another very logical option that could have happened just as easily. Okay, you have another option. And cell phones have these things called batteries. Sometimes the batteries die, which means if you're on a phone call, when the battery dies, essentially the call is dropped. You can no longer speak to the person on the other side. That does actually happen whether you're moving or whether you're stationary. So out of those two choices, if you were in a writing class, would you opt to choose for the cell phone losing service while a girl is stationary in the middle of a call? Or would you opt for the cell phone to have low battery going into the scene, which would cause foreshadowing and would cause tension because we're now thinking about the ticking clock, which is a classic mechanic of storytelling and filmmaking when it comes to driving tension and intrigue and drama in your film? Would you choose that option where the phone dies in the middle of a conversation, which is far more logical? You can't fight the logic, which is far more believable and which serves to drive tension and create a more sophisticated, engaging plot in the end that adds to the story? Would you choose that, or would you choose number one, the dog shit bullshit option where the girl is not moving and service drops in the middle of nowhere, conveniently at the perfect point in the call to keep the story going? Which one would you choose? Which one would you choose? Personally, I choose number two, but it seems that the writer's room also chose number two, but the number two I'm talking about is a giant pile of shit, which is this script. Now, I know these are nitpicks, guys. These are nitpicks, but when you look at a bunch of nitpicks and they start to add up, none of the movie makes sense. And so you can kind of stop believing and stop buying into the film, and then the film has no weight, It's okay if one or two little things are not making quite sense, but when it's just a bunch of little things, it really shows you the mindset that the writers had, and it wasn't a good one. Or maybe maybe it was. Maybe they had a good mindset, but they just weren't intelligent enough to carry out their goals effectively. I don't know. But yeah, another really dumb moment in the film. Sorry for the big rant, but I had to explain myself here and why this made me so mad. So, it's a horror movie. So instead of waiting there, she decides it's okay to carry on. So she gets out of her hiding spot. And right away, we get a new jump scare as there's a stranger that she can't see following behind her. Yay, another jump scare. Cool. Now the stranger starts singing Rockabye Baby again, like earlier in the film. And what happens after this jump scare? Well, boom. So the girl's walking along after she gets out of her hiding spot, and boom, another jump scare from the strangers. And this time it's one of the female strangers with a mask, and she boom whacks our main character girl and knocks her out. Now we cut to the main character girl being dragged by the stranger while the stranger sings a creepy rendition of Rockabye Baby, just like earlier in the film. Because it wouldn't be a scary horror movie without bastardizing a children's lullaby. We already touched on this. It just doesn't work in this film because this film is really dumb. So it just sounds even dumber in a dumb film. We now cut back to the boyfriend who is tripping his way through the forest with a shotgun while all the strangers still seemingly have melee weapons. We have yet to physically see a stranger with a gun in its hand. The boyfriend sees a tractor and decides to hide behind it. Now, keep in mind, two things. One, the boyfriend is known to have asthma, panic attacks, breathing issues throughout the film twice. He's had it twice already. One of the asthma attacks was simply triggered by them talking about marriage, okay? Which can be very scary, I know, okay? So you might have trouble breathing when talking about marriage. However, they have been scared shitless multiple times throughout this film, and he has yet to have any sort of asthma-related trouble throughout all of those trepidatious moments, those scary moments, those heart-wrenching, breathtaking moments throughout the film. None of them have triggered his asthma until now when he's hiding and he doesn't have his inhaler, which is an inhaler's pretty quiet. So it makes sense he would probably get away with using his inhaler in this scene when he needs to hide and make no sound. So what do you know? He doesn't have his inhaler. He didn't bring it along from the car apparently, or he left it again. So what does he do? He finds a water bottle, a plastic water bottle, and he starts to breathe into it like you do with those bags on, what am I doing with my hands here? He starts to breathe into it with those, like you do with those hyperventilation bags on airplanes that they hand out to you, barf bags or whatever. He starts doing that with the water bottle, and he's crunching it, and it's making this most crunchy, loud ass noise, like as he's breathing into the water bottle. Of course, they needed to have him have an asthma attack, not because he has asthma, but because he's hiding and he needs to be loud to drive the plot forward. So they have him have an asthma attack, they take away his inhaler and make him use a water bottle for hyperventilation. Now, I don't know about you, but a water bottle for hyperventilation and an asthma inhaler don't have the same effect, right? I'm honestly too lazy to look it up because the story is already stupid enough. I don't even need this extra reason to call it out. What would breathing into a loud ass water bottle do, especially when you're trying to hide in the forest? Couldn't you just like stick it out and maybe just, I don't know, pass out on the floor instead? Well, I don't know. Just man, I'm getting very depressed at this point in the review, and so I'm running out of ways to like find motivation to keep making fun of this film. So bear with me. Anyways, film needed the plot to continue, so they needed to take away his inhaler and give him a random asthma attack when it didn't happen throughout most of the events in this film anyways. Doesn't make sense. So he makes noise with the water bottle and boom, that has no impact on the plot because he decides to get up and start screaming anyways. So what is it, film? Is it the water bottle that's supposed to cause the tension of him, making noise about to be found? Or is it him screaming? Like, pick one. Back to back, you do both. One of them made him less stupid than the other because him screaming out loud actively, he's screaming for his girlfriend, makes him seem infinitely more stupid than, trying to fix his breathing problem. Because you gotta breathe, right? You gotta breathe. But you don't have to shout out loud to keep living. You don't. I know you want to find your girlfriend, but maybe you can do it a little more quietly. And I think if she wanted to be found, she would be the one screaming by now, bro. So just because you're screaming doesn't mean she's going to answer, because if she's not screaming, she's likely dead or knocked out already, bro. So why are you screaming? Why are you screaming? And why did the writers put it back to back with him, making the water bottle noise? Which noise is supposed to serve that plot function? Just pick one or the other. You don't need both. That water bottle scene is completely irrelevant. And as they already, almost forgot about his asthma throughout most of the film anyways, they could have just left it out for this, third act of the film. They didn't need it. It just, again, more redundant, stupid choices by the writers. I don't know. So he starts screaming for his girlfriend, and the girl stranger sees them, sees and hears him. And so she starts to follow him. But he turns around, boom, has her locked. with a shotgun. He makes her drop the weapon. Obviously, she's got a melee weapon. He's got a shotgun. So she's going to listen to him. She drops the weapon. And at this point, he doesn't incapacitate her or do anything. You know, he could have had her, you know, tie herself to a tree or something of the sort. He could have, you know, broken one of her legs or, you know, rendered her, you know, unconscious in some sort of way. He could have shot her in the foot. I don't know. He could have done anything. We already know he's not hesitant to shooting people because he shot the mechanic right away earlier in the film. So he doesn't do anything but interrogate her. You know, he says like, "Where's the girlfriend?" He says, you know, "Lead me to my girlfriend, please. What are you doing?" You know, he's asking her questions, right? He's asking her, "Why shouldn't I kill you right here?" And she starts doing this little dance. Like, I don't know. She starts doing a little dance. I don't know. She starts dancing. And he says something so funny and so corny. He says, "You know how they say the first kill is the hardest? You're my second." Boom. What a crazy iconic line that would be in probably a lot of other great movies. We would have appreciated a line like this. It's just classic, you know? But in this movie, it comes off stupid as shit. It just does. But then, as he's about to pull the trigger, what do you know? He gets knocked out by a different stranger. Boom. I don't know. You should have knocked her out, tied her to a tree or something, and kept moving. But no, main characters have to get captured by strangers because it's a strangers movie. My whole theater is now yelling dumbass at the screen. We're all just having a blast roasting this movie. It should have been marketed as a parody of The Strangers and not the actual Strangers movie. It's hilarious. If you want a fun, bad movie to go laugh at, I actually do advise you to buy a ticket to this. You and your girl, you and your boys might get a nice kick out of just throwing popcorn at the screen and yelling for an hour and a half. Or I don't know how long this movie was, but it felt way too long. And so with both boyfriend and girlfriend knocked out in the woods, they are dragged back to the cabin, and we are at the cabin again. And we have yet another record playing music because it's Strangers, and we need to have records playing music. The couple is now tied up on chairs because it's Strangers, and that's how these movies go. And the strangers are in front of them ominously with their melee weapons, their knives. I think one of them has an axe, one of them has a knife, and they have masks, obviously, because they're the strangers. That's how these movies go. The boyfriend wakes up first and asks the girlfriend if she can hear him, and he says it's going to be okay, as they both cry. And she says she's so sorry to the boyfriend, and I'm like, what are you sorry for? Like, you didn't cause any of this. Maybe because she wanted them to move to Portland or something. I don't know. There's some deep rooted guilt within this character that we don't really get exposed to, so we're not really sure why she's saying sorry. Maybe she's just sorry that they have to go through this. I guess it's a nervous thing to say. I find myself saying that sometimes, even when I shouldn't. So I give that a pass. It's fine. And now, in the middle of the climax of the third act, our protagonists are tied up at their last. You know, they've got one more chance left to perhaps escape or do something. They're perhaps about to die. They're in the most dire situation they've been in yet, and it's now finally time to pay off the whole marriage thing because the boyfriend asks the girl to marry him. Ironically, at the climax of the worst part of the film, the most dangerous, the most treacherous scene for our sad protagonists. And oh my God, this was so cheesy. Again, our movie theater burst out laughing. Like, you didn't earn this. You didn't earn this. We don't like these characters enough. We don't give a shit about this story enough because none of it makes sense. None of it has any weight, depth, or backstory to heighten our interest or intrigue in the drama. And so we just don't give a shit. And it comes off like so Hallmark, so Walmart. It's just so forced, cheesy, corny, unbelievable that we just don't give a shit at all. So nice try, film, at some sort of ironic sentiment, but it just didn't work. It didn't work. It was hilarious though. It works as a parody. It works wonders as a parody. Go in and watch this as a parody of The Strangers and you will have a blast. And so after that moment, a brief moment of peace and beauty in the midst of terror and horror, right after that happens, boom, the bro gets stabbed in the stomach and kicked over by one of the strangers. So he spits out a bunch of blood and he presumably just dies on the floor. Now the girl's obviously crying and whimpering and she's asking, why are you doing this? Remember this part? We're back here to the beginning of my video, which is the end of this movie. And they say, and I cannot tell you, the whole audience felt the same way. They felt like the movie was making fun of the audience here. And I have to believe that it was, because otherwise, if it wasn't, then there was not a single drop of intelligence, wit, or irony, or anything that makes any sort of, redeeming factor present in the film from the filmmakers. If they didn't write this on purpose to make fun of the audience for going to this movie, then all hope is lost for intelligence in filmmaking. And even if they did do that, it's still a giant kick in the nuts. It makes sense and it's clever for them to do that because the movie is so bad that writing it in this meta way to climax the movie, telling the audience like, well, we made such a shitty movie because we knew you guys would show up to it. And I have to believe in my heart of hearts that the whole point of this movie was a thought experiment to see how bad can we make a horror movie that audiences will still show up to and bring in a profit for us with. How bad can we make it? How terribly written, how poorly designed of a movie can we make and still sell well enough to the audience to justify making more, to justify filling our, to fill our pockets with profits. And I have to believe in my heart of hearts that this was a dirty little trick pulled by Hollywood to expose not only the system, but the audience as well. Not only the way Hollywood works, but the writers as well. Because if it was done on purpose like that, this film is brilliant. It changes on a dime. My opinion of this film changes on a dime. And I actually respect the filmmakers behind this film if they claim that that's why they did it. Now, they might have done this very completely on accident. This could have been a very meta script purely on accident. And they might, after the fact, take responsibility for that. I hope they don't do that. I hope that they are, my heart of hearts knows that they were likely just dumb, stupid amateur script writers, didn't have a clue what they were doing, didn't have any passion behind the film itself. So that's more likely than not the case. But if this film was designed cleverly as a meta narrative on the Hollywood system today and horror movies today and how they work and how audiences are actually stupid, and that's why the movies are stupid, that would be brilliant. That would be brilliant. But I digress. I don't think that's the case. So now, as the film reveals to us, the strangers are simply just committing crimes because they can. Because they're doing this to the family. They're doing this to the boyfriend and girlfriend just because the boyfriend and girlfriend happened to be there that weekend. It could have been anybody else. They just do it because they want to do it. And why did they make this movie? Well, because we showed up to watch it. That's why. It's a big fuck you metaphor. It's a big throw sand in your face moment to the audience. If you have a brain cell or two and you're thinking beyond the film, you're kind of insulted by now. She then says, fuck you, gets stabbed in the stomach as well and pushed over, and she's now bleeding out on the floor next to her dead boyfriend. And what do you know? As the couple is bleeding out dead on the floor, we hear perfectly timed police sirens and the strangers escape. So the strangers timed their murder so perfectly well that the police sirens go off literally 2 seconds after both of the main characters are dying on the floor. Do I even need to explain why this is fucking retarded? I'm sorry for the language, but do I even need to explain why this shit is ridiculously contrived? No, I'm not going to waste my breath doing it. This is stupid. You know why. I'm not. Okay, anyways, moving forward. The cops show up. They discover the murder scene. The camera pans and zooms into the girl's face on the floor, and then boom, cuts to a hospital scene where she's still alive. She's still alive. She got out of there just in time. And then the movie ends, and they have the audacity to say, to be continued. We don't want this to continue. Maybe I do, because if I get a lot of views on this, I want chapter 2 to come out and be just as bad so I can make a funny video on it. That's what these filmmakers deserve at this point. But man, let me just tell you, in conclusion of this movie, chapter 1, the movie that's supposed to build the most lore, to do world building, to explore the origins, the roots of the characters of the strangers. What do we learn about the strangers? What do we learn about their origins on this first chapter of the strangers? We learn absolutely not a single thing about the characters. We barely learn anything about the main characters. There is no character development, character arc. The only character arc and development is that they decide they want to get married. That's it. The whole character development and payoff is that they finally just want to get married before they die. That's it. We learn nothing about the strangers. All we learn is that, yes, they wear masks and they kill people. We were told that for 2 other movies. We wanted to come into this movie and understand why, where, who. Even if their motivation was just they like killing people, how did they come about that? Why do their minds work like that? Who are these people? Do they think, are they psychopaths? Are they delusional? Do they think that they're in a horror movie? There could have been a lot of meta narrative opportunities taken and they just weren't. It's crazy, man. The amount of ideas that you could have for a chapter 1 prequel about a murderous family who wears masks and thinks they're in a horror film and act like they're in a horror film when they're just killing regular people for no reason. There's a lot to dig into the psyche of those kind of characters, and they just didn't do a single ounce of digging. Even the ominous moments, the foreshadowing throughout this film, barely any of it pays off in the end. What was the whole thing with the creepy town and the guy who ordered the same meal as our main character who died before him? What was the deal with that? Nothing is explained. Nothing is paid off in this absolutely horribly fucking dog shit garbage excuse of a film. I can't even find enough words to describe how disappointed I am in this movie. I don't know how it has a 50% rating on any of these websites or close to it, while Rotten Tomatoes clearly shows the correct rating, which is around a 16-20% or less is what I would give this movie. It is a sequence It is a series of horror elements thrown into a nonsensical script with no payoff, no pathos, no empathy for the main characters, really, barely any scares. This movie was not that scary. And so if you have a horror movie that's not that scary and you have an origin story that has no origins, what do you have? What do you have? You know, it's like a prequel with no pre. It's just a quote. What the fuck is a quote? I don't know. I don't know. So I don't know. I just don't know what to say. This movie was so bad. And I hope that I broke down everything in the plot as much as I could from memory and from notes on my phone. And I hope that if you guys didn't watch it, or even if you did, that you can understand exactly why I was so frustrated and so disgusted by just the lackluster nature of this film, set in a somewhat promising premise, you know, being the origins of a murderous family who wears like creepy masks. I want to know about those people. I want to know how they came to be. They must have been a regular family at some point and then started murdering people. I want to see how that came along. That would have been a great pitch for a plot, but nope. We just get a random sequence of events with people being murdered in a cabin and nothing matters. Nothing matters. It's a big fuck you to the audience. I'm pretty sure I'm half and half on the fact that the filmmakers might be in on this joke and they're really just trying to turn a profit with a cheap horror movie while laughing in the audience's faces. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me from the current state of Hollywood. It just wouldn't. So anyways, guys, that's Strangers Chapter 1, the most horror movie of all time. Death by prequel, the worst prequel of all time. I'm still working on the title of this movie, of this video rather. So who knows what it is, but I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. This has been Stark Cinema. Catch you on the next one, and I love you 3000. Have a great day.